The knock on my door is 3 short raps, spaced like a salvo. My name is Daniel Cole. In 44, I was Fire Direction Chief for Battery B, 44th Field Artillery, 4th Infantry Division. My job was to turn map squares into dead ground, take the coordinates, the forward observers sent, and make sure the guns put steel there. Out in the Hürtgen, between Vossenack and Schmidt, we fired a full mission once, on a place that did not exist on any map, and something there answered. Now I'm at the kitchen table with the map again. Same German 1 to 25,000 sheet I stole in 44. Laminated now. Corners curling from years of being unrolled and rolled again. The coffee in my mug is cold. The pencil on the table isn't in my hand, but the tip is resting on the same square of forest it always finds. The square with no contour lines, no elevation, no road, no church symbol, just blank paper between Vossenack and Schmidt. Mr. Cole. It's just me. The nurse calls through the door. You took your meds. Her voice is soft. Too soft. The house is quiet, except for the fridge and the way the pencil scratches all by itself. A little shiver of graphite over paper. It draws the numbers I already know by heart. Grid 337,612. My hand isn't moving. My thumbnail presses into the groove on the table edge. The kitchen smells like detergent and old coffee, but under that I smell wet earth and hot metal. The knock comes again. 3 raps. This time the wall trembles like a distant battery just fired. Yeah, I say. My voice sounds like it belongs to someone else. Doors open. She comes in with her cart. Plastic cups rattle. Pills tick-tick in the tray when she moves. She glances at the map, like always. She never really sees it, just shapes in faded green and brown. You keeping busy with your puzzles? She says. You been up early? I look at the pencil. The numbers beside the blank square are dark and fresh. I sharpened that pencil yesterday. I remember watching the curls fall into the trash. I do not remember writing those numbers again. Same puzzle as always, I say. Behind her, the TV in the living room spits static and muffled voices. Some daytime show. Underneath it, soft and steady, I hear another voice, nasal and clipped, punching through decades of noise. Battery B, fire direction, adjust fire. Grid 337,612, over. The nurse pushes the little paper cup of pills toward me. The white one clicks against the plastic like a shell casing in an ashtray. You okay, Mr. Cole? She asks. You look like you heard something. I swallow the pills dry. The water in the cup tastes like canteen water in November metal, and chlorine, and something buried. I heard an old order, I say. One I shouldn't hear anymore. She smiles like it's a joke she doesn't get. She wheels the cart out. The door closes. The latch catches with a sound too much like a firing pin. The TV volume rises on its own. Not the nurse, not the remote. The voice from the past pushes through the game show crowd. Clearer now, using the host's mouth. Coordinates do not exist on current map sheet. Over. Paper crinkles under my palm. The map buckles. For a second, the blank square isn't blank. In the sheen of the overhead light, I see roofs, a steeple, a bend in a river, a village laid faint over forest symbols, like something trying to come back through thin paper. I blink, and it's just clean, pale map again, waiting for the guns. The phone on the wall starts ringing. It's not my ringtone. It rings 4 times short, 2 times long, then 4 again. Fire mission cadence. The same weird pattern we heard that night when the wire line came alive on its own. I stay in my chair. You want the story? It starts in the woods where the maps lie. It starts with mud up to the hubs and cold rain, and a German woman pointing at a blank patch of paper with a finger that smelled like wood smoke and cabbage and old church incense. It starts in Hürtgen, November 1944. We thought maps didn't lie back then. Back then my hands didn't shake when I handled them. We kept them in a metal box in the back of the FDC truck, wrapped in oilcloth. Every morning I'd unroll sheet 5107 and tape it to the board. The grid lines were so clean. The towns had names. Schmidt, Vossenack, Commerchet, call little black squares for houses, little crosses for churches, rivers in blue, neat and contained. Outside the truck, the forest didn't look like that. It was wet and black and close. The pines leaned in. The ground dropped and rose without warning. Every clearing was a swamp or a minefield or both. Cole, you loving that paper more than your wife? Corporal Eddie Morales would say, lighting another cigarette with hands still black with powder from the gun pit. You gonna marry those little squares when we get home? I can still see him leaning against the truck bumper, helmet pushed back, Lucky Strike hanging from his mouth, smoke curling into the drizzle. He always smelled like cordite and cheap shaving cream. He kept a picture of a girl from El Paso in his pocket, folded so many times the creases cut her face into pieces. I get more cooperation out of these squares than I ever did out of my wife, I'd tell him. Sliding the slide rule along the plotting board. These don't talk back, he'd laugh. A short barking sound. Then he'd glance at the trees like they were listening. The first time we met the old woman was in Vossenack, before they pulled most of the civilians out. The town sat on a ridge, church in the middle, houses clustered like they were huddling from the wind. Our battery was dug in along the slope, guns pointed east, muzzles over a sea of dark fur. I'd gone up with Lieutenant Frank Hollis, our forward observer, to talk to a German priest about using his bell tower. Hollis had a college face, thin, pale, glasses that he kept pushing up with the back of his hand when he was holding the phone. He'd been a school teacher in Ohio. He carried a little black notebook in his breast pocket with grids and elevations and doodles of trees along the margins. We were standing under the church portico, rain dripping from the stone, when she shuffled up with a basket under her arm. Gray shawl, black dress, hem muddy, face like crumpled paper that had been folded and unfolded too many times. Amerikaner, she said. Artillery. She said it like an accusation and a prayer at the same time. Hollis nodded and tapped his own helmet where the officer's bar used to be before we scraped the shine off. Artillery, he said, then turned to me. Get the interpreter. The interpreter was 2 streets away, complaining about his boots. I shook my head. I took 2 years of German before the war, Hollis muttered. Let's see if it's stuck. The old woman set her basket down. Eggs, wrapped in straw. The smell hit me first. Damp feathers, earth, wood smoke. She pointed at my map case. Cart, she said, Ziegen. I looked at Hollis. He shrugged. I pulled the map out and unfolded it across the low stone wall. The rain dotted the paper in small dark circles. The ink bled a little. She put one hand on the cross at her neck and traced the grid lines with the other, finger hovering just above the paper, not touching like she was afraid to smudge something holy. Schmidt, she murmured, finger tapping the village symbol. Commercet. Her finger moved east, into the forest, following a road line. She tapped one square, and her mouth tightened. Call Capit, she said. Schlecht Road in the valley, Hollis translated, half to himself. She thinks it's bad. Then her finger slid northeast. Into the forest, she stopped at an empty square. No symbol, just grid lines crossing. Her finger hovered over it, but did not touch. Her breathing changed. Short, shallow. The skin around her eyes went tight. Higher nicked, she said. Gibt ease nicked. She jabbed a finger at the blank square. Then she lifted her hand and jabbed the air beside my shoulder, toward the tree line outside town. Kienfeld, Kienhaus, Kien name, she said. Hollis frowned. What's she saying? I asked. She says there's no field there, he said slowly. No house, no name. There's a whole grid square drawn, I said. Lines say it's there. He pushed his glasses up and leaned closer to the map. His finger followed the road line, the contours. He checked the coordinate numbers. Cole, this whole sheet's based on pre-war German surveys, he said. They're accurate. They have to be. Our corrections match. The old woman grabbed his wrist, stronger than she looked. Her nails dug into his sleeve. Keen name, she hissed. Keen house, Keen Glock. Nur Erdi, Keen Schriben. She drew her thumb across her throat. Then she patted the cross at her chest and spat on the blank square without actually letting the spit land. She stopped it with her tongue at the last second, like the idea of her spittle on the map scared her more than the thing she was warning us about. She picked up her basket with a grunt and shuffled away, muttering under her breath. The words followed us like smoke. What the hell was that? I asked. Old woman superstition, Hollis said. He tried to make his voice light. It sounded forced. Everywhere we go there's some haunted barn or cursed hill. He tapped the map lightly near the blank square. Mostly, they're just places where a lot of people died the last time Germans marched through. He said it like that made it better. I folded the map. The paper resisted for a second, like it didn't want to crease over that square. In the FDC truck that night, the rain was louder than the shelling. Water drummed on the canvas roof. Cigarette smoke hung under the low light bulb. The plotting board gleamed under a thin sheen of condensation. Rourke sat by the radio, headphones crooked on one ear, humming some big band tune under his breath. Private First Class Jimmy Rourke was Boston Irish, freckles and all. He tapped his dog tags against his teeth when he was nervous. The tags clicked softly as he wrote down call signs and times in the log. He'd been a lineman back home. He hated enclosed spaces, but he loved the radio. Said the static sounded like the ocean. You hear the rumor? He asked, not looking up from the log. Crowds call this place a Hexenwald. Witch forest. Swear to God. Got it from a prisoner. Prisoners say a lot of things, I said, sliding a TFT data card into place. Most of it about how they were never Nazis. This one wasn't talking about politics, Rourke said. He was crying like a baby. Said there was a village out there that got wiped a long time ago. Witch burning plague, some old church thing. Nobody writes it on maps now. Said if you fire guns at it, the guns don't forget. He finally looked up. His eyes were gray. They didn't match the half-grin on his mouth. I told him, we fire guns at whatever they tell us, he said. He stopped crying and said, Dan word it, ear, ease, Heenan, then you'll hear it, I guessed. My German's bad. That's what the interpreter said, Rourke muttered. He tapped his tags again. They chimed softly like a tiny bell. Cole. Someone yelled from outside. Boots thudded against the mud. CO wants you at the guns. Bring the map board. I grabbed my jacket and the map and stepped out into the rain. The night wrapped around me like wet wool. The gun pits were just darker holes in the dark, shapes of men moving like shadows around the splintered forms of the M2A1 howitzers. Captain Harris stood near number 2 gun, helmet low, poncho streaming water. His face looked carved out of stone in the flash of a nearby explosion. Somewhere in the trees, German artillery was probing, slow and lazy. Cole, he said, without preamble. Division wants a registration on new reference points east of Schmidt. Hollis is up in the church tower. He's got eyes through the gaps in the canopy. We need to be ready to walk fire quick tomorrow if the infantry pushes. He pointed with his chin to the telephone on the ammo crate. The line ran off toward the village like a dead snake. They're sending coordinates now, he said. You'll make sure we're not shooting our own guys if this weather clears just enough for a miracle. Yes, sir, I said. I spread the map on the crate. Raindrops spattered the paper. The red grease pencil shone under the flashlight. The forest east of Schmidt looked like solid green, contour lines like ribs. The phone crackled. Rourke's voice bled through with Hollis behind it, half static, half urgency. Fire direction. This is observation, post Able, Hollis said. Ready to register. Over. Captain Harris grabbed the handset. Able, this is Red Leg 6. Cole's here. Give us your grid. Grid 335598, Hollis said. Reference tree line north of the call trail. Mark 1. I found it. The grease pencil circled it. Normal. Legitimate. We sent data. The first gun fired. The blast punched my chest like a fist of air. The shell screamed overhead and disappeared into the trees. Shot. Over Rourke. Relayed. Splash. Over. Hollis answered. Rounds complete, Rourke said. We waited. Thunder in the distance. A brief flare of light that showed trees and mist, and nothing else. Up 50, Hollis called. Right 20, repeat. Over. We adjusted. Fired again. Walked it. The forest swallowed everything. Hollis gave corrections like he was in a classroom, precise and calm. Cole, how's it look? The captain asked. Normal, I said. Just trees and mud between here and the call. We're not going to hit anyone friendly unless they're way off the road. We fired until he was happy. The coordinates stayed on the safe side of the line. When we were breaking it down, rolling the map, Morales came up with a tin of coffee and a grin. Hey, Cole, he said. You hear about the square we're not supposed to shoot? His grin didn't reach his eyes. Seems we're not supposed to shoot a lot of squares, I said. Germans, for example. No, I mean locals, he said. He took a sip and grimaced. Captain says some crowd priest asked him not to register anything on some old field that doesn't show up on his parish list. Says everybody who messes with it has bad dreams. Men walk off into the woods and don't come back. All that. I felt the cold seep through my jacket. Where? I asked. He shrugged. East of here somewhere. Woods and fog. Like everything east of here. I thought of the old woman's finger hanging over the blank square. That night, when I lay on my cot in the tent behind the truck, the forest sounded like the inside of a shell. Rain, wind, needles hissing. Somewhere far off, a gun fired, and the sound rolled through the trees like a delayed wave. I closed my eyes and saw the map. Not the whole thing. Just the square where her finger had stopped. Blank, waiting. The fire mission that changed everything started 3 nights later. The rain hadn't let up. The ground had turned into a living thing that sucked at boots and wheels. Our guns sat in their pits like stubborn animals, muzzles dark with soot, trails buried in muck. Men's faces were a uniform shade of gray, washed clean of everything but exhaustion. I was back in the FDC truck, jacket off, sleeves rolled, so I wouldn't drag mud across the plotting board. The little light bulb swung with every gust of wind, sending shadows sliding across the walls. Rourke hunched over the radio, chewing the end of his pencil. His helmet sat next to him, sweatband steaming gently in the damp air. Outside, someone pissed in the ditch and cursed when the cold hit. Another man laughed. A distant shell went overhead and exploded somewhere behind us. Dirt rattled on the truck roof. The phone on the wall rang, not the way it usually did. Instead of a steady burr, it clicked in a stuttering pattern. Long, long, short, long. It sounded like the line couldn't decide whether it was alive. Rourke frowned and grabbed it. Battery B, fire direction, Rourke, he said. The voice that came through was hollow and thin. It sounded like it was traveling through more wire than existed in Europe. Fire direction. This is observation. Postable, it said. Adjust fire. Grid 337, 612. Over. I felt my stomach pull tight like a rope. Say again, Grid, Rourke said. His pencil hovered over the message pad. You're faint. Able. Grid 337, 612. The voice repeated. Enemy movement in the open. Platoon-sized request quick fire for effect. Over. The hairs on my neck stood up. I didn't know why yet. Just a feeling like cold water poured down my spine. You got it? Captain Harris asked from the doorway. He'd come in without me noticing. His poncho dripped on the floorboards. Mud flecked his boots. I laid the map flat. My fingers were clumsy for a second. I forced them to steady. I found the easting, then the northing. The grease pencil stopped in an empty square. No contour lines, no little building symbols, no road. Just forest around it, and a clean, bright nothing in the middle. The old woman's hand hovered in my mind. Keen name. This is wrong, I said before I could stop myself. How wrong? The captain barked. It's in the middle of nowhere, I said. No known features. No clearing. According to this, it's just trees and slope. The ground falls off here. Makes no sense for them to be in the open. Maybe they're crossing a logging road we don't have, he said. or a firebreak. You see any problems with range or mask? The math said it was fine. The shells would clear the trees in front of us. The deflection was within normal. The range was long, but not crazy. It's just empty on the sheet, I said. Then you'll make it not empty, he said. Division wants us to interdict any movement east of Schmidt. We sit on our asses. Our boys die in the trees. You know that. His logic was a hammer. Simple, heavy. The phone crackled again. Hollis's voice came through, clearer this time. Battery B. This is Abel, he said. I have movement. They're moving west. We don't have time to argue. Put Steele on 337612. Over. There was something off in his tone. A tightness, like he was forcing the words out between clenched teeth. Ask him what he sees, I said. My mouth felt dry. Not just movement. Ask him. Abel. Describe target. Over, Rourke said. Static. Then, they're crossing the field, Hollis said. Line abreast. No lights, no helmets, I can see. There. Wrong. Just put it on the grid. Over. Field. The map was blank. Cole, the captain said. We are not going to make our foe repeat himself in the middle of a target-rich environment because your map hurts your feelings. He didn't raise his voice. That made it worse. I forced my eyes away from the blank square. I did the work. Deflection, quadrant, charge, time fuse, because he said they were in the open. I called the numbers. The data sounded normal in my own mouth. Familiar incantation. Number 2, load he, time fuse, 1 round, charge 5. The section chief outside shouted. His voice traveled through the thin walls of the truck. Deflection 3120, quadrant 385. Fire when ready. Metal clanged. A shell clunked into the breech. The breech slammed shut with a satisfying, deadly sound. Shot over, Rourke said. Splash. Over, Hollis replied. We waited. The second between expectation and impact stretched like a rubber band. The gun's report rolled back over us. The earth under the truck shivered. The air in my lungs vibrated. Nothing happened for a heartbeat. Then the forest in the distance flashed like someone had dropped a camera bulb behind a sheet. For a second, in that white light, I saw it. Not on the map. Out there, beyond the gun pits, past the dark line of trees. A field, open, almost square, ringed by trees like a wall. In the middle, a low stone church without a steeple, roof black and caved. Figures moved across the field toward us in a line, slow and steady. They were too thin, too tall. Their limbs wrong, like someone had stretched a picture. Their heads were covered in something white, sheets, hoods, smoke. The shell detonated overhead with a flat crack. The sound was wrong. It didn't echo like it should. It was like the noise got swallowed. The light went out. I blinked. The dark rushed back in. There was nothing but trees and rain again. On target, Hollis said in my ear. His voice was calm, too calm. Fire, for effect. Repeat. Over. The captain slapped my shoulder. You heard the man, he said. Give it to them. I stared at the blank square on the map. The grease circle around the coordinates stared back. Fire for effect, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. We sent the order. 6 guns. He. Time fuse. Full battery. Rounds on the way. The woods lit up like a broken string of Christmas lights. Flashes hidden behind trunks and fog. Every time a shell burst, I saw the field for a split second. Not always the same. Sometimes the church was whole. Sometimes it was a foundation. Sometimes there were no buildings at all. Just rows of shallow pits like open graves. The figures moved regardless. Always in that slow, deliberate line. On the last salvo, one of them turned its head toward us. You can't see eyes from that distance in a storm in a forest at night. Not really. But I swear I did. They were just empty circles. Like the blank square. Like the map had folded itself into sockets. Check fire. Check fire. Hollis snapped over the line. His voice cracked. Cease firing. Cease firing. Over. "Cease fire," the captain bellowed. The word jumped from mouth to mouth. The guns went quiet, with a series of grudging clanks. We all listened. Rain, drip, ping of cooling metal. Distant German artillery, unrelated, grumbling somewhere else. Nothing from the field that wasn't on the map. "Able, status, over," Rourke said. Static hissed for 2 seconds. 3, 4. Then, "I lost them," Hollis whispered. "They just weren't there between bursts anymore. No bodies, no movement, just field. Looks like a field. Over." "What about the church?" I blurted. Rourke covered the mouthpiece and shot me a look. "Abel, do you observe any structures?" he asked. "Repeat, any structures?" "Over." "Negative," Hollis said. "Just trees all around. Some old stumps in the middle. Nothing else." "Over." Captain Harris looked at me. His eyes were tired. Mud had crept up his trouser legs, almost to the knee. "Maybe you're more tired than you think, Cole," he said. "You've been living with that map too long." I didn't answer. We logged the mission. Ammunition expended. Time on target. No observed casualties. The map got a little circle around the coordinates and a note in pencil. Later, when the guns were at rest, men sleeping where they fell, the forest finally down to a low hiss, I took the map out again under my flashlight. The blank square was not entirely blank anymore. There was a faint outline, not in ink, in a different tone of paper. Like at some point the mapmaker had erased something there and never quite got the ghost of it out. A rectangle of slightly darker off-white. In the middle, if I squinted, I could make out a cross shape. I rubbed my thumb over it. The paper was smooth. No raised lines. No actual ink. The next night, the wiremen found something on the line. They'd gone out at dawn to check for breaks. German shells and falling branches were always chewing the line up. Rourke and a kid named Kellerman came back with mud up to their thighs and something wrapped in Rourke's field jacket. We were standing behind the truck, next to the spare ammo crate, when he unrolled it. It was a section of our cum wire. Only it wasn't how it should be. Instead of copper inside black insulation, the thing inside the jacket looked like a length of dried vine, twisted in gray-green. Little nodules ran along it like knuckles. When he tapped it against the crate, it made a metallic sound. At first I thought it was a root, or something that got tangled, Rourke said. He rubbed his nose, left a streak of mud, but it spliced into our line, Cole. We traced it. Our wire runs, then this. Whatever the hell this is. Then wire again. He looked like he wanted a cigarette, but didn't trust his hands to light it. We cut it out, he said. But the line kept working until we took this part away. I reached out and touched it. It was cold and dry, like metal left in shade. The nodules had tiny slits in them, as if they'd been mouths once. Maybe it's some kraut trick, Morales said. He'd wandered over. He poked it with 2 fingers and then wiped his hand on his trousers like he'd touched something alive. They got all kinds of weird field gear. Kellerman says he heard something when he cut it. Rourke muttered. Said it sounded like bells. Way off. You hear anything through the phones, Cole? Any bells last night? I thought about the way the phone had stuttered before Hollis's first call. The pattern of ring, like an old mechanical exchange half broken. Just a weird ring, I said. Maybe we're tapped into crowd church services now, Morales joked weakly. Free mass with every fire mission. Nobody laughed. We threw the thing into the sump pit behind the guns. Later, when the pit flooded with rainwater, it floated on top. It didn't sink. It just lay there, half submerged, nodules upward, like it was listening. That day, Division ordered the 4th Infantry deeper into the woods. Men from the 12th Infantry Regiment moved past our position in single file, faces smeared with mud, eyes hollow. We stood by the guns and watched them disappear into the trees. Hey Cole, one of them called as he passed. Ohio accent. He waved his rifle. His bayonet flashed in the gray light. You keep the steel coming when we yell. Yeah. Don't fall asleep on those maps. He vanished into the dark like the rest. That night, The forest changed its sound. The rain eased for a while. The wind dropped. There was a moment near midnight when everything went so quiet, you could hear the tiny sounds, cloth shifting, someone's teeth chattering under a blanket, the soft scrape of a boot on plank. Then, from somewhere to the east, there came a dull, steady rhythm. Hump, hump. It was too slow for artillery, too soft for mortar, too regular to be thunder. In the FDC truck, the pencil on the plotting board trembled with each pulse. Not much. Just a tiny jump, the length of a hair. Jesus, you feel that? Morales said from the doorway. He had his jacket open, shirt damp with sweat despite the cold. Feels like we're parked on top of a big truck engine. Maybe it's a Kraut railroad gun, Kellerman said. He was the kid with the wire. He had a baby face under the grime, on tracks underground or something. They don't have rail under these trees, I said. Not that close. Not enough room for a big gun. Hump. The light bulb swung. The phone rang. Normal ring. This time, no stutter. Battery B. Fire direction. Rourke, he said. Able, came Hollis's voice. Krauts are up to something. I see movement again. Same area. Grid 337612. We need another mission. Over. My throat closed. The same grid? I asked, even though I'd heard Rourke relayed my question. Affirmative, Hollis said. I see. Shapes they're not undercover. They're just walking that field. I think they're not all people. Some are shorter, some are... Never mind. Just put it on the grid. Over any friendlies in the vicinity. Captain Harris cut in. Confirm no friendly units anywhere near that position. Over. Negative, Hollis said. Our closest boys are pinned down near Comorchet. These things are east of them, between them and whatever's out there. Over. Hump. The truck floor trembled. Something thumped lightly against the outside wall, like a branch or a hand. I looked at the map. The blank square seemed to glow under the lamplight. The faint ghost of the rectangle in the middle was darker now. The cross shape was clearer. Cole, the captain said. We don't have the luxury to be spooked. Put rounds on target. Sir, I said. What if the map's wrong? What if there's I don't know, some old structure there we don't know about? Or civilians? That old woman said. She said a lot of things. He snapped. All of them in German, and all of them not my problem. Our boys are dying in there. If the Krauts are moving anything in the open, we shred it. That's the job. He leaned in, low, so only I could hear the next part. You start hesitating on coordinates. More men come home in bags, he said. You want that? He straightened. He looked away, toward the guns, where silhouettes moved in the dim light. Fire mission, he said. Now, I gave the orders. When the first salvo went out, the hump in the ground matched the beat of our guns. For a moment, the two rhythms were in perfect sync. Then the unseen thumping under us faltered, like something lost its step. Shot over, Rourke said. Splash, over, Hollis answered. The bursts lit the forest again. The field appeared and vanished between shadows, like a flickering film. On the third round, something changed. The sound of the explosion came late. For a heartbeat, we saw the flash and heard nothing. The silence was so complete, my ears hurt. Then the noise crashed over us, delayed and doubled, like an echo from underground. In that split second of silent light, I saw the church clearly. Stone walls blackened, roof gone. The door stood open. Something hung from the doorway, swinging slowly. It might have been a bell rope. It might have been a person. The figures on the field were closer now. Not marching, drifting. Their feet didn't quite touch the ground. One of them carried what looked like a flag or a banner. It snapped in a wind we couldn't feel. There were markings on it. Black symbols. When the light hit them, they looked like grid lines. Right 10, repeat. Over, Hollis shouted in my ear. His breathing was fast. They're reacting. They're turning. They're looking this way. For God's sake, keep firing. We adjusted. We fired. On the sixth round, Number 3 gun misfired. The charge went off with the breech not fully locked. The blast kicked the gun backward in a wrong way. Metal shrieked. The concussion slammed into the FDC truck, knocking my pencil off the board. Men screamed outside. Misfire, misfire. Someone bellowed. I stumbled out into the night. Number 3's pit was a mess. The trail had jumped its chocks. Part of the recoil mechanism was twisted, steam hissing out. A man lay crumpled near the breach, helmet off, hair slick with blood. His helmet rolled slowly in a circle, then stopped against the trail. Morales was on his knees beside him, hands pressed to the man's chest. Blood seeped between his fingers in slow pulses. "It's Tanner," he shouted at me. "God damn it, Tanner, you stay with me." Tanner's eyes were already empty. The hump under the ground fell out of sync entirely. It stuttered, stopped, started again, weaker. "Get that gun safe," Captain Harris roared. "Medical, medical." Someone grabbed my arm. Cole, Rourke, eyes wide. "Hollis is still on the line," he says. Static drowned his words for a second. Then Hollis's voice cut through, too loud, like he was shouting directly into my ear. "They're not falling," he yelled. "We hit them dead center. I see the bursts. They don't fall. They just change." "Say again," I croaked. "They're closer," he said. "The more we fire, the closer they are. They're on the edge of the field now. Some of them look like our boys. Some look like Germans from old pictures. Some have no faces. They're all looking at me. They know where the fire's coming from. Cole, they're looking at the guns." Behind him, faint but clear, I heard another sound. Bells, many small bells, ringing out of tune. Then the line went dead, not static, not a click, just a sudden, complete absence. The kind of silence you get when someone cuts a wire with a clean blade. "Line's dead," Rourke said numbly. He tapped the hook. Nothing. At that exact second, the phone on the wall of the truck rang. Not the one connected to Hollis. The direct line to battalion fire direction. Rourke stared at it like it had grown teeth. "Answer it," Captain Harris snapped. Rourke swallowed and grabbed it. "Battery B fire direction, Rourke," he said. The voice that came through was not from battalion. It was our own. "Fire direction, this is Battery B," it said. The tone was flat. No emotion. It sounded like me. "Adjust fire. Grid 337612. Over." Rourke's knuckles went white around the handset. He turned to look at me. "Very funny, Cole," he said weakly. "You patching in some training tape?" I shook my head. I was 10 feet away from the board. My hands were empty. "Who is this?" he asked into the phone. His voice climbed. "Identify yourself." Over silence. Then, slowly, like someone was dragging the words up from a deep well. "We are on the field now," the voice said. "We can see you. Fire for effect. Over." The ground under my boots shuddered. My eyes went to the map. The blank square was not blank anymore. Someone had written in it. The ink was darker than the rest. The letters small and crooked. A name, half smudged. I bent closer. It wasn't a German name. It was English. Our kind of handwriting. Battery B. The pencil rolled off the board and fell to the floor. Behind me, number 2 gun fired. Who gave that order? The captain roared, spinning toward the line of guns. Who cleared that? Nobody answered. The gun crew looked as startled as we did. "I didn't call it," the chief said. He sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "Shot. Over," came a voice from the battalion line. We all froze. The handset on the wall was still in its cradle. The line light was dark. Nobody was holding it. "Splash. Over," the disembodied voice said. Out past the trees, the forest burst into white again. This time, the light did not show the field. It showed something else. I saw our own guns. Not here. Somewhere else. Or somewhen. The same battery layout. 6 pieces in a ragged line. Men in the pits that looked like us, but younger. Cleaner. Uniforms a little different. Helmets with older insignia. The muzzles flashed and recoiled in perfect time with the explosions out there. One of the men in the nearest pit looked up. He had my face, bare of wrinkles, eyes full of something I didn't recognize. He opened his mouth like he was going to shout a fire command. The light went out. The noise hit us late again, crushing and heavy. Somewhere to the east, men screamed. Not like infantry under normal shelling, higher, shriller, like the sound a metal sheet makes when it's torn apart, but made out of throats. Morales made the sign of the cross. His cigarette burned down between his fingers. Forgotten. "We're not firing anymore," Captain Harris said hoarsely. "All guns, check fire. That's an order." We didn't fire again that night. We didn't sleep, either. In the gray hour before dawn, when the sky was the color of dishwater and the forest was a black wall, a runner from battalion came in half sliding down the slope. He was soaked and shaking, mud up his chest. "Battalion wants your fire mission logs from last night," he panted, "and your map. Both copies." "Why?" the captain asked. "They say you fired on coordinates they don't have on any overlay," the runner said. "Regiment says there's no grid 337612 on their sheets. They think somebody at division screwed up. They want to see your materials." He looked at me. His eyes were too round. "They also want you, Staff Sergeant Cole," he said. "S3 wants to talk about some discrepancies." He tripped over the word like it tasted bad. In Battalion HQ, they had a different map on the wall, larger scale, different sheet. The big shots stood around it with coffee cups and cigarettes, tracing lines with their fingers. Major Wilkins, S3, was a tall man with a nose like a hatchet. He didn't bother to sit. "Staff Sergeant," he said, "we've been looking at your fire logs. According to your records, you fired 2 registrations and a Fire 4 effect mission last night on a grid that doesn't exist on the regimental map. Care to explain?" I laid my map on the table. "It exists on mine, sir," I said. My voice sounded small in the tent. "German sheet 5107, pre-war survey. We've been using it since we got into this sector. Coordinates match other known points." He leaned over it. His cigarette ash dropped on the lower edge of the forest. "I see grid lines," he said. "I do not see any features." "That's true, sir," I said. "No features printed, but our foe observed. Movement in an open field. They're enemy units. We engaged as requested. I did not mention the church, or the figures, or the second voice on the phone that sounded like me." Major Wilkins grunted. He went to the wall map. "Our copy of the German survey has a gap here," he said. "Somebody cut something out and glued a patch over. No grid references, no contours, nothing. Division says the original sheet from Berlin has the same patch. No one knows why. Might have been a printing error. Might have been some pre-war hush-hush. We don't know. What I do know is, you expended a lot of ammo on a blank." "The foe reported targets, sir," I said. "Lieutenant Hollis. You can ask him." Wilkins flicked his ash into a tin cup. "We can't," he said. "His OP took a direct hit about 10 minutes after your last salvo. The church tower collapsed. We pulled 3 bodies out. None of them had a face left we could recognize." He looked at me. "You go back to your battery," he said. "You fire when and where you are told. You log it. We'll worry about whether the grid exists." As I turned to go, I saw the chaplain in the corner, standing by a field altar, stacked with little wooden crosses. He was rubbing something between his fingers, a scrap of paper. I caught a glimpse as he flipped it. It was a tiny section of a map. Just a square. Just grid lines. Someone had written a single word on it, in tiny, neat letters. "Forlorn. Lost." When I got back to the battery, Morales met me halfway down the slope. "You should see this," he said. In the sump pit behind the guns, the weird section of wire was gone. The water was still. Too still. A layer of scum had formed, even though it had only been a day. On top of the water, tiny bubbles arranged themselves in a rough pattern. Little circles, little lines between them. If you squinted, it looked like a grid square. Probably rats, Kellerman said. His voice shook. Or chemical something. I don't know. That afternoon, they shelled us. Not from the direction we expected. Usually, the incoming came from the east. German batteries hidden deeper in the forest. We'd gotten good at reading their rhythm. The distant bark, the growing whine, the way the trees shuddered. This time, the first round came with no warning. No distant report, no whine. 1 second, Morales was lighting a cigarette behind number 4 gun. The next, the world turned white. The blast picked me up and slammed me into the side of the FDC truck. My ears went from pain to cotton in one heartbeat. Dirt and splinters and bits of something wet rained down. I lay on my side, staring at the ground under the truck. The earth was pulsing, not metaphorically. It rose and fell like something underneath was breathing. Counter battery. Someone screamed. The voice sounded far away, at the end of a tunnel. Another round hit. Closer. The ground heaved. One of the guns shook like a toy. The barrel bent an impossible angle and hung there, drooping. I crawled up, grabbing at the truck's edge. Blood ran down my neck. I couldn't tell if it was mine. Where the hell is it coming from? Captain Harris yelled. He had his binoculars up, scanning the tree line. There were no flashes, no smoke trails, no nothing. Another round came in. I watched it. There was no arc, no flight. It just appeared, 10 feet above the ground at the edge of the tree line, like someone had copied and pasted an explosion into the air. It went off. The trees bent away from it. A man by number 5 gun flew backward without a sound. His helmet spun like a coin. Get down, someone yelled. I dropped behind a crate. The air smelled like hot iron and turned earth. Underneath it, faint but clear, I heard bells. Little ones. A whole cluster of them, ringing inside my skull. Direction. The captain shouted at me. His voice cut through the cotton. Cole, where the fuck are they? I staggered into the truck. The map swung in front of me as the vehicle rocked. The hits lined up. They were falling along a neat little line, a line that ran the other way. From the blank square toward us. 337612, I whispered. What? Rourke yelled. He was on the floor, his logbook open, pages fluttering. They're firing from the grid, I said. My lips felt numb. From the field, they're walking it in. On us. That's impossible, he said. We're the only ones with guns on that coordinate. Another round hit. The truck lurched. The light bulb shattered, showering us with glass. Outside, I heard Morales shout once, then nothing. The next shell didn't land. It appeared in the middle of the FDC truck. There was no flash, no bang. 1 second, the air in the center of the space was empty. The next, it was full of steel and rough-painted olive drab. A 105 shell, nose down, hanging in nothing. It didn't fall. It just hung there, spinning slowly. I saw my own stenciled handwriting on its side. B, B, T-R-Y. Time fuse. My vision tunneled. Out. I screamed. Out, out, out. We hit the door in a tangle. Somehow, we got through. We rolled into the mud as the shell dropped the last inch and the fuse kissed the floorboards. The blast tore the truck apart like paper. When the ringing in my ears faded enough, I heard someone sobbing. It was me. Later, picking through the wreckage, we found the plotting board in a tree 20 yards away. It had embedded itself in the trunk like an axe. The map was still pinned to it. The blank square was gone. In its place, in faint pencil, was a tiny drawing of a church. No one admitted to drawing it. We all knew no one had time. Division pulled us out of that position 2 days later, called it redeployment. We left a gun tube behind, twisted into scrap. We left 3 men in blankets under temporary crosses at the edge of the woods. We left something else in that forest, too. I think it's still there. Years went by. Different wars, different newsreels, different languages for the same orders. I worked a desk after that. They decided my nerves were not optimal for combat environments. That's how they put it. I did logistics in the States. I retired. I got old. But the field on the map never left. In my first civilian apartment, I kept sheet 5107 rolled in a cardboard tube under the bed. I told myself I was throwing it out. I never did. Sometimes the floor would vibrate at night when there was no traffic on the street outside. The glasses in the cabinet would clink in a slow, steady rhythm. Hump, hump. If I got up and put my hand on the wallpaper, it would feel warm, like someone had put an engine on the other side. I tried not to think about it. I failed. In my 40s, married, kid on the way. I spread the map on the kitchen table one night while my wife was at her sister's. The house was quiet. The clock ticked loud. The blank square was back to being blank. Mostly. If you tilted your head, if the light was just right, there was a faint texture in the paper, like someone had pressed something into it from below. Little ridges in a pattern. I traced them with my fingertip. They matched the line of shell impacts from that night. A tiny, raised version of the fall of shot. The phone rang. I startled so hard, my chair scraped the floor. It was just my wife, calling to say she'd be late. I thought I heard something on the line, she said. Like bells. Did you hear that? No, I lied. Just static. Years passed. The forest grew back over those pits. I watched documentaries. They showed veterans going back, pointing at trees, saying, "My gun was here. We slept there." They never showed the field on the map. Every few years, I'd get a letter from someone in the old unit, a reunion notice, a newsletter. One time, a photocopy of a clipping in German. The clipping showed a small ceremony in a clearing near Vossenack. A handful of locals and a priest around a simple wooden cross. The caption, badly translated, said something about remembering the nameless dead of the forgotten village. The location, if you read the fine print, was given as near grid 337612. Nobody had built houses there. Nobody had planted crops. They just put up a cross and some flowers, and left. I turned the clipping over. On the back, someone from the old battery had written, "They finally put a name on it." I folded the paper and slid it into the map tube. Then the dreams started. In them, I was back in the FDC truck. Younger hands, steady again. The plotting board spotless. The phone would ring. I'd pick up, "Fire direction. This is battery B." My own voice would say from both ends, "Adjust fire. Grid 337612. Over." In the dream, I'd look at the map. The blank square would be filled with handwriting. Not mine. A dozen different scripts, overlapping. American, German, old, cursive, block, capitals, words crammed into the space until they sat on top of each other. Help. Here. Nobody. Listen. You. Each time, there'd be one new word I hadn't seen before. Come. In my 70s, widowed, I moved into this little house the VA helped me get. One floor, easy access. The map tube went with me. It lived in the hall closet, next to the winter coats. I pretended I'd forgotten it. Then, one November, right around the date we'd first fired on that grid, the floor started to shake again. It was subtle at first. Pictures on the wall rattling just enough to make me think I'd imagined it. The glass lampshade humming. The water in the toilet bowl trembling in little concentric circles when I peed. I called the gas company. They checked the furnace. Nothing. I called the city. They said there was no new construction nearby. No subway. No trains. The nurse who comes by in the mornings said it might be my circulation. Old men feel ghosts of things, she said. Phantom vibrations. I didn't argue. That night, it got worse. I was sitting in my chair, feet up, watching some show where people guessed the price of appliances. The audience clapped and screamed. The canned laughter was like artillery over a radio. I turned the sound down. Underneath, in the quiet, the floor thumped. Hump, hump, hump. The coffee table moved a fraction of an inch with each pulse. The map tube rolled out of the closet on its own. It bumped lightly into my foot and stopped. "Fine," I said aloud to an empty room. "Fine." I picked it up. My hands shook, but not enough to stop me. At the kitchen table, I unrolled the map. The smell came with it. Old paper, ink, and under that, faint but unmistakable, wet pine, cordite, and the sour stink of wool uniforms left too long in the rain. The blank square was not blank. Someone had inked in a tiny church. Someone had drawn a fence. Little crosses in a cluster on one side. A road leading in and then stopping. At the edge of the square, on the side facing our old gun positions, someone had written a single word. Zoo house, home. I knew that handwriting. It was Morales's. He used to label everything in the ammo bunker, spelling mistakes and all. My chest hurt. The phone on the wall started ringing. For short, too long, for short. The TV speakers hissed. The channel flicked on its own to a news report showing some ceremony in a German forest. Old men in uniforms standing in the rain, heads bowed. A priest sprinkling water on a wooden cross. The reporter's voice cut in and out, but I caught enough. Memorial to both German and American soldiers. Unmarked graves. No official record of the engagement. Locals call it Das Feld ohne Namen. The field without a name. On the screen, the camera panned across the clearing. For a moment, the perspective lined up with my old view from the gun line. The crosses, the edge of the trees, the slope. In the far distance, just where the tree line broke, I saw a gap. It wasn't big, just a dark notch. No trees, no grass, just a hole. You couldn't see the bottom. The TV popped and the image went to snow. The phone kept ringing. I went to it. My hand left a smear of something on the map. Sweat, or something else. I picked up. Yeah, I said. My voice was thin, cold, static. Then the faintest sound. Not artillery, not bells. Typewriters. Dozens of them, clacking in a huge room. Then a voice. Female, German, tired. Battery B, Führerleitung, she said. Stellen Sie das Führer ein. Sie schägen auf Ihr eigenen Toten. I hadn't spoken German in decades, but I didn't need a dictionary. Battery B, fire direction. Cease fire. You are firing on your own dead. Too late, I whispered. The line went dead. The floor stopped shaking. In the silence, my heart hammered loud. I went back to the table. The map had changed again. The little church in the blank square had smoke coming out of its roof now. Just a thin, penciled-in wisp. The crosses by the fence were darker, and in the margin, next to the title, someone had written 3 sets of numbers. The first was the old grid, 337612. The second was a set of coordinates in a format I didn't recognize. Latitude and longitude, maybe. Different war, different system. The third was a street address. My street. There was a knock on the door. 3 raps. Salvo spacing. I didn't move. Mr. Cole, the nurse called. I forgot to have you sign the form. You okay? I thought I felt the building shake a minute ago. I folded the map with careful hands and rolled it up. The paper was warm, like it had been in the sun. Doors open, I said. She came in. The house looked normal. No cracks in the walls. No fallen pictures. Just an old man at a table and a tube of paper under his hand. She watched me sign the form. Her pen clicked twice. Tiny, sharp sounds. Any more dreams? She asked lightly. You seemed a little out of it this morning. Just old artillery, I said. She laughed like it was a joke. That night I tried to sleep. The bed felt like a cot under me. The ceiling felt too low. Every creak of the house sounded like a footstep in mud. At some point, between one blink and the next, I was back in the FDC truck. Young hands, steady. The map was brand new. The blank square, really blank. The phone rang. Fire direction. Cole, I said. Fire direction. This is the voice on the other end, was mine. Older, rougher. This is you. Don't do it. Don't fire on 337612. Over. I looked at the captain in the doorway. He hadn't changed. He was still young, still tired. You hear that? I asked him. Hear what? He said. The line crackled. If you fire, they're going to keep walking. The older me said, "They're going to keep coming. The map won't forget. The guns won't forget. And one day, they're going to reach your house." "You're crazy," I told myself. "We don't get to say no." The captain frowned. "Who the hell are you talking to?" he asked. The younger me hung up. I woke up in my own bed, sweating. The floor was still. In the morning, there was a thin line of mud on the kitchen floor. It started at the front door and stopped at the table. On the table, the map tube lay open. The map was spread, even though I didn't remember unrolling it. There were fingerprints on the blank square. 6 of them, big, smudged ovals, spaced like someone had placed a hand there. The ridges were too deep for ink, too deep for pencil. I pressed my fingers into one. It fit. I washed my hands 3 times. The faint smell of pine and smoke wouldn't come off. Now, most nights, the floor is quiet. The bells are faint. The news plays reruns. The nurse thinks my shakes are normal for my age. But when the weather rolls in from the east, low and heavy, the house hums. The pencil at the table moves on its own, making circles around that patch on the map. Sometimes, when the power flickers, the TV will jump to a black and white image of a field no broadcaster ever filmed. Just trees and a small stone church and a line of figures standing in the open, facing the camera. They don't move. They don't have to. They wait. You want to hear more like this? Stories that don't stay buried where we left them, that follow you home after the screen goes dark, then stay. Remember the men of Battery B, 44th Field Artillery Battalion, 4th Infantry Division, and the nameless field near Vossenack, in the Hürtgen Forest, November 1944.